If one of the studs in your intake manifold snapped while you were torquing it down, or simply called it quits for no apparent reason, in this video, I'm going to show you the easiest and most professional way to swap it out. A bad seal on the intake manifold means air is escaping where it shouldn't, and that's a direct hit to your fuel economy and performance. I'll also share a few critical tips you absolutely cannot afford to skip. Let's get to work. To save you some time, I'm getting straight to the point. First, off come all the cabin filter housings and the filters themselves, along with the strut brace to give us enough room to pull the intake manifold. I'm also pulling both the large and small parts of the acoustic cover. At this stage, we can already spot where the trouble is. This stud is completely toast, and I'm about to swap it out. Now, listen closely because the how and what here is critical. I'm loosening all the intake manifold bolts, but I'm not backing them out all the way just yet. I'm doing the same for the bolts tucked deep inside the manifold. First, a gentle loosen, and only then, I'll back them out all the way. This gradual approach distributes the tension so we don't crack the manifold. Let's not forget, this thing is plastic, high quality sure, but it's over 20 years old, so it's better to play it safe. I'm also disconnecting the throttle body harness and popping off the intake duct. Next, I'm backing out the single bolt holding the oil dipstick tube and unplugging the two electrical connectors tucked away at the back of the manifold. Finally, I'm loosening the clamp for the EGR connection. Now that everything's clear, I can fully release the manifold bolts and pull the whole assembly out, throttle body, EGR and all, and set it aside. This is the perfect window to inspect all the intake manifold gaskets. But before we dive into that, if you're finding this helpful, please smash that like button and subscribe. It's a huge motivator for me to keep this channel growing. Thanks a ton. Moving on, right here, where the manifold meets the engine, you'll be able to see if there's any oil weeping or if they need replacing. In my case, something's not quite right in this one spot. So, I'm pulling all the old gaskets, cleaning out their seats, and dropping in a fresh set, just to be 100% sure I won't have to tear this all down again anytime soon. Alright, so here's our snapped stud. I'm going to carefully pry it out using a plastic trim tool. You've got to be gentle here, as we don't want to chip the edges of the intake manifold. I managed to track down a brand new replacement which, let's be honest, was stupidly expensive. I had to cough up nearly $8 for a single stud because I couldn't find a donor part anywhere. It is what it is. I'm sliding the new stud into its seat and heading back to the engine, where the other half of the broken bolt is still stuck. I'm backing it out using my mini Knipex pliers, pulling it out and tossing it. After that, I'm wiping down all the sealing surfaces to get rid of any excess gunk or carbon buildup that could mess with our vacuum seal. Finally, I'm seating the manifold back where it belongs, leading up to the most critical part of the install, applying the right amount of force. But before we torque it down, while I still have some wiggle room, I'm plugging in those rear electrical connectors, tightening the EGR sealing clamp, and popping on the intake duct. Doing this now helps the entire manifold settle perfectly into its seat. Don't forget the rest later, bolting down the oil dipstick and powering up the throttle body. Now, I'm threading all the manifold nuts deep inside, but I'm doing it by hand, zero force for now. I'm doing the same with the upper studs, tightening them evenly in a cross pattern and using zero force for now. We have to do this without putting any stress on the plastic. Once that's set, we can torque the manifold down for real. I'm using a torque wrench set to 15 Newton meters for the inner studs, again following that cross pattern. Then, I'm doing the exact same thing for the upper studs, but this time using only 10 Newton meters, also in a cross pattern. The rest of the steps are just a formality. Instead of filming the boring, easy stuff, I've prepared something way more interesting for you. Check out my video on the full engine rebuild. Stay safe and take care.